please give a warm welcome to actress Nina Haas and writer-director Nia DaCosta. Oh, Tessa will be joining us. Oh, Nia, moving
sure.
closer.
Of course, this is where.
Yeah, Tessa is pulling up in her. Oh, and here comes Tessa Thompson. Tessa, you just wanted a Hedda-like entrance.
She would do that, wouldn't she?
Lovely, the three of you. I'm so blown away by having you all three here. Nia, I'm going to start with you. I was blown away by your production design, the lighting, the costumes, even the score. Everything reflects the characters and the turmoil of Hedda. In particularly, I have to ask you about that painting, that cubist fractured painting that lurks all over the dining room. Yeah. How did that come about?
So first of all, thank you, and thank you for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. That painting Kara Brower is my production designer, and this is our third film together, and she's brilliant, and we had a lot of conversations about what the house would look like. The first thing we talked about was this can't look like what we think the 50s look like. It needs to feel like the actual 50s. In particular, how a woman, a very modern woman, a woman like Hedda would decorate her house. And one of the first things I said was like, well, Salvador Dali is like painting in this
Salvador
time.
Dali. Yeah.
So it's like that gives us. I think that when you think about it that way, that opens up your brain. Like, oh right, of course. Like there are whole movements happening, the avant-garde movement, not just in painting but in music. So that painting in particular was inspired in part actually by. I went to when we were looking for homes. We went to this one home, and it didn't work out, but the family was really cool, and they had a very modern family portrait next to very old-fashioned ones of like their ancestors, and I thought, oh, Hedda would have a very modern portrait. And so at the time, we went with Cubist, and it really reflects like who is she, the fractured energy of her. The green was something that we really wanted to lean into, and now that painting's in my living room. Or my dining room, actually. Yeah.
You actually have the painting.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tessa's, but I said you can have it when you move to London. So we'll see when it becomes mine.
It was supposed to be my rap gift.
See, the funny thing was I didn't know this was happening, and so I just was like, I want that painting, and then I found out, and I said, well, let's make a deal. Move to where I am.
Someday soon.
The other thing I have to ask you before I start talking with the actors is Sean Bobbitt, your director of photography. I was blown away by the anamorphic lenses, the flaring that happenings, and how the film starts darkening as the movie progresses. Can you talk about the importance of Sean's?
Yeah, I mean, Sean Bobbitt, this is our second film together. We went on to make a third film together. He's like one of my favorite people, period. And as a collaborator, he's just so wonderful to work with. The way we work usually is I'll shot list the entire movie, and then I'll say, Sean, come into my office, let's go through it, and we'll try to go through the shot list scene by scene, make some changes, additions, etc. But with this movie, it was really important for us that the look decay over the course of the film.
Wow.
And we wanted to give ourselves the latitude to do that. And the good thing was it was a party, so it's not just like it's getting darker and then the themes are getting darker, but also, people are getting more drunk, the cocaine comes out at a certain point. Everything's devolving, not just in terms of the story, but also in terms of the tenor of the party. So we used 2 sets of lenses, both are vintage, but one was funkier than the other. So we had the Hawk C series, and then we used the Crystal Express lenses, which we pulled out as the party went on, and they're really funky, and they have a really good warp, and the buck is really cool. And so, we just wanted to have a look that deteriorates, and then it gets darker and darker as the film goes on, until we're in the cold light of day the next morning, and then we completely shift everything into a cold tone.
Tessa, your costume designer, Lindsay Pugh, I loved how the costuming informs the character. Like when Hedda walks into the party, she has this big skirt that, like, you're taking up space. And then I notice as the movie progresses, that skirt is deflating. Can you tell us about working with Lindsay in the costuming?
That's so neat. You're the first person that's noticed that. And I really, I just loved creating sort of the emotional journey of the character through clothing, because you have such an opportunity, oddly, the less clothing that you have to express character, because everything becomes more important. And this dress of Hedda's is so constructed. We love the idea of her just being sort of stuck in it and just the boning of it. And also this necklace that kind of chokes her in a way. But on the other hand, you also have this sort of, it's very low cut. There's a kind of openness and daring, especially for the period. And yes, over the course of the evening, some of the underpinnings and all of the sort of fluff we took down depending on where she is in her journey. But the whole idea of the dress was really to take up size. And that was a joy. We had 2 weeks. We ended up having 4 weeks, actually, of rehearsal because we survived a strike and had to come back and rehearse again. But it was very fun just to come even to rehearsal always in that skirt, because it really does affect the way that you move through space.
Oh God, I love seeing because you'd be like in the crinoline and then like shoes, but then like very modern everything else. Made me laugh all the time. But yeah, but it was I actually something I learned from that was when we got to shooting. The actors are kind of going around their Uggs or whatever, and then when they put the shoes on, that's when I really felt you guys become more of the characters, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah, there really is such a shift, and particularly I think when you work in period costumes, because they really do change the way that you can move.
I didn't get a chance to tell you this before. I'm such a huge fan of you, Tessa.
Thank
and
you
what
so
I
much.
love about your performances is that you are capable of showing so much inner turmoil of a character with not doing much. And I'm curious about Hedda. There is so much inner struggle and challenges happening with her, but tell us about internalizing all of the arc of Hedda.
Yes, thank you so much. That is true. I think we all have so much more going on inside of us than we can verbalize or show.
But it's not easy as an actor to convey all that inner turmoil.
Sure. I think also a particular challenge in this is the play, she can be quite verbose. And I think what Nia has done brilliantly is to expand so many of the themes inside of the play, particularly by making Eilert into Eileen. We get to sort of explore kind of the themes through these three women in particular. But I think for Hedda, there certainly became, I think, an imperative to get to communicate things that exist in the text that maybe they didn't in this. And I just really love that so much. I love to get to sort of track character through a glance and through all the things that we don't say. I think in particular, an interesting thing about Hedda is in some ways she's so sort of bound. There's this kind of ultimate cowardness inside of this incredible bravado and social bravery. And that sort of tension I thought was so fascinating and such a kind of electric and torturous and delightful thing to experience over the course of the couple months when we shot.
And Nina, I know you play Hedda on stage before. She's a brilliant stage actress, by the way, Nina. And for those who are not aware of Hedda Gabler, shame on you. In the original, Nina's character is a man. I loved the switch because Eileen represents the new world, which is and Hedda's trapped in the old ways. Tell us about, from your vantage point, you're so familiar with the play, the shift of your character now as Eileen.
That's so interesting that you say that. I never thought about it, that Eileen would be the new world and Hedda is still trapped in the old ways of thinking. But that's, of course, true. And I think that is already the big shift that happens through this brilliant idea of Nia's, that Hedda has someone in front of her where she sees, I do have a choice. I could live a different life, and I could go on this journey with Eileen or not, and do it on my own, but to push the boundaries, to see what we can change together, So, and with that, Eileen also becomes a true option for Hedda. And I always thought with Eilert, when I was performing Hedda, I was always, but it's never gonna work anyway, kind of thing, You're gonna drink and thing. So it's just, but with Eileen, all of a sudden, who challenges her also, that's something new that Nia did, that I say to her, but you are brilliant. Do something, I know that you can, and you just never, why? Whatever you achieve in life, you have to do for yourself. But then again, you can think, it's right for Eileen, but maybe it's not quite right for Hedda, So
Correct.
I find that opened up for me that you all can make up your mind. We're just showing the struggle of each character. There are some similarities, but basically you watch it and you can go, why is that? Why don't we do the things we want to do? Or why, if I have a feeling, I should explore that in my life? What keeps me from doing that? And so the that's in the play, but it's even more so in Nia's version, that you love them for that they take on the struggle. You can relate to them, and it's open to you and up to you to take out of it and home from it what you need, So that I love. That was really new.
Returning to the idea of costumes and helping the character, you in the library scene, which is in a movie full of incredible moments, the library scene is the costuming. You're wearing that corseted black outfit, but then see-through. But what's brilliant about your performance in that moment is that your character doesn't seem to care what the men are saying about her. She's so, grounded. Tell us about that scene.
When I read it, I thought, oh my God, what an amazing scene. I can't wait. I just can't wait, because the lovely thing about being an actor is that you can experience those kind of situations and you're being held by the scene. I know the end of it. I know Eileen is going to turn the room around. So I would not necessarily want to experience this situation by myself, because I wouldn't handle it that way, I'm sure. But so it was such a joy to see that, and I love Eileen so much for it, and Nia for writing her that way, that she just really doesn't care. And she turns everything that might be embarrassing, she turns it around, because that's what she's learned to do. Mm-hmm. And she's doing that every day. Yeah. And because she is already an embarrassment when she enters a room full of men, she already has to prove herself in a different way. She already is always and constantly looking to be taken seriously, just for what she's thinking, what she puts on the page. But you have to work through so many layers to actually get there. So all of that was in the scene for me. And she doesn't lose her humor. She doesn't lose her wit. She's provocative in a great way. And she wins the room at the end of the day.
Yes.
But the next moment she turns around and the men say, take your kid off, what's with the fucking Eileen? And then, so that's also fantastic. That's for me the end of this sequence, that no matter how brilliant she is, no matter how little she cares about her embarrassment, she still doesn't achieve that moment of having power, and holding it. You're a constant outsider in a way, And yeah, that for so many reasons, I love this whole section so much. Yeah.
Oh, well, you're brilliant in it. Nia, I mentioned I've taught your films in my class. I want to draw the parallel between Little Woods and this film, where you have two really strong black women in a white environment, in white spaces. Tell us about you navigating that idea in your films.
For sure. That's also something else no one's ever asked me about before, but I feel like it's quite obvious. I was educated in predominantly white institutions because my movies are sort of obsessed with being a black woman surrounded by whiteness and how you navigate that world. I went to private school and boarding school and had a great time mostly, but I came from public school in New York City, which is incredibly diverse, not just in terms of race or ethnicity, but also socioeconomically, in terms of religion. Everything is so diverse there. So going to boarding school, which I wanted to do in Connecticut, was a very different experience. And I think I've always been trying to grapple with what it means to be a black woman in those spaces, especially when those spaces is also the entire country to a degree, So yeah, I'm always interested in what freedom looks like, especially as a black American, but I think it goes beyond sort of the political. I think it's also the deeply personal.
Yes.
What is freedom to you? And so I think that's the connection for me between Hedda and Ollie, who's the lead in my first film, Little Woods, which takes place in North Dakota. How do you pursue freedom? For my character in Little Woods, it's crime. She makes some bad choices to try to be free. But in a way, those choices are also a prison. And for Hedda, she doesn't really have any idea how to pursue freedom. I think every character in the movie makes a mistake of trying to pursue power in their own ways, but power does not equal freedom because you can lose power, as that scene with Eileen shows. So yeah, these are things that I find really interesting. I think it's a struggle that is specific to my black female American experience, but everyone is trying to figure out. So that's why I find so much joy in excavating that and in centering that story.
Mm-hmm. But you also not only you switched you make Hedda a black woman, but it's also 50s England. Tell us about that choice. I mean, it has to do with repression and the culture.
Well, absolutely, yeah. So, and that's another thing that I'm really growing up. I was really fascinated by World War II and post World War II and how we tried to build society again after such a huge global wound, 44 million people dying, country lines being reestablished and so many women entering the workforce in a different way. But then after the war, they're all told to go back home. Yes. Thank you for proving you can do X, Y, Z, but no one cares, the men are back. And then the men come back and they're all traumatized and they're like, okay, go back to work. So no one's really thinking about what's actually best for us, how do we actually move forward. It became really conformist and repressed, I think, and I think it's no surprise that the 60s blasted into, again, what is freedom? What is life? What is living? What is it really? I just found it really fascinating, and the 50s felt perfect because I wanted it to be period, but I wanted it to be culturally recognizable, but also sort of pop culturally recognizable for us as well.
And Tessa, two questions for you. One is the accent. Tell us, how did you arrive to that particular accent that she has? And then second is the rage that Hedda has, and how difficult was it for you to tap into that rage?
I think your questions are so great. They're so wonderful. We wanted to find something. We were really interested in this idea of performance, and as Nia said, this sort of great pretending of the time. And we were interested in a version of Hedda that she was a sort of master pretender, and I think that the dialect is a huge part of that. I just really loved listening to just sort of upper echelon of society in the 50s, and this kind of really mannered way of speaking sometimes, and also this sort of, some of the poshest dialects that I heard, people were hardly opening their mouths. You know, there's this kind of like, you're so rich that you don't even have to really open your mouth to speak. And I just thought it was delightful. I just thought it was so fascinating and wonderful. And also just the Queen's English, it has this brilliant cadence, and we couldn't quite do that. It didn't make sense for Hedda. But I love this idea of this woman who grew up as a bastard child who was sort of always on the outskirts of society, but had enough proximity to it, and would study it, frankly. And so that was kind of the things that were swirling around. And then I think also this idea of this sort of belly full of rage that is masked by this ultra feminine affect. I just thought was a real interesting kind of conflict in her. And I think for me, the accessing that kind of anger and rage is the thing that is always sort of the most challenging for me in my work. I always think that developing character is about kind of expanding things in your own humanity or minimizing things that don't serve character in your own humanity, and having to expand the appetite for rage and anger and confrontation. To me, that's always kind of it's challenging for me. But I think really useful, and particularly I think when we're talking about a certain kind of rage that has to do with being inside of a female body, it is the kind of rage that takes arguably a lifetime to reckon with and realize that that it exists in you. So I felt very grateful to have the opportunity to lock into that and to understand it. And I really started with looking at pictures of my grandmothers, both of them who were women of the 50s and very much women of the time. My maternal grandmother never had a job in her life, was a stay-at-home housewife, never left the house, never even sat in the house without a lip on. She had curlers in her hair every day, like a very picturesque, like 1950s woman. And I just felt so kind of fascinated by her choices. She now has Alzheimer's, so I haven't had the chance to really ask her in a considered way about them. So when I was doing inquiry into this, it was just asking a lot of questions of my parents and trying to understand them. And I think I just really locked into the fact that they were both wonderful women and also women that I think were incredibly hemmed in by the time and by the men in their lives, frankly. And yeah, it was kind of an incredible thing to start there. It was really generative.
And I would love to hear your opinion about what Nia and I were talking about, the parallel between Little Woods and Hedda, the fact that it's a black woman in white spaces. And the same character also underwent that same dynamic.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about the parallel. I mean, I think in Little Woods you see this character that's doing bad things for good reasons. And
so is Hedda.
In her mind, yeah, definitely.
List the reasons.
Listen, we don't have time today, but there are really good reasons for all the things that she's doing. And some of them are surprisingly for other people.
Yeah.
You know? The reason she's doing things, she thinks. But it's interesting. I don't know the parallel. I guess
You mentioned it actually the other day when you mentioned the line from the movie. Your choices are only as good as your options are.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for both films.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think that's true.
Nina, you're familiar with the play. This play, when I read it and I study it, has so much sexuality, it has so much humor, it has so much intentionality, and there's a predatory quality in the play. And every production I've seen doesn't tap into all of those aspects, but Nia, in her production, in her interpretation, taps into it. They're in Ibsen. Can you tell us about navigating those aspects that were untapped until her production?
Well, I think when I think of Ibsen, also his other plays, there's always, because it's set in this cold country and people are kind of wrapped up, you know, and kind of in their own bodies somewhat caught, and a little bit that's similar to the British, without any offense. Just a little. Maybe it's in the northern countries. I can see it in the Germans as well. In the from Denmark, people. It's this kind of, you don't go out and show your emotions. You kind of bury them as long as you can, and then maybe something erupts. So I always, with Ibsen, I have the feeling, there's something going on. What is it? So that's also the sexual tension. Like this play between Hedda and Eilert is this, we can't live it, but we just want to talk about it the whole time. So it's always this kind of like, tell me, you know. So it's like, wow. So it has another kind of tension. And what Nia did is she threw all of us into this one night of the party, which is not in the play. You hear about the party, but you're never at the party. So all these characters, we have to be in this, you call it pressure cooker. I find it such a good image. You know, it's this kind of, it's boiling and you can't get out, and you have to kind of find your way through it. And that makes it that Hedda can play with her sexuality much more open and upfront, and use it for her. Eileen plays with her femininity in a different way, but also is provocative in a certain way. Everyone at this party, you know, I mean, her Eileen's friend goes out and catches the first lady he can find, and then there's a gun and the thing. It's like, it goes great. You'd never find that in Ibsen, you know. So it's like Nia took it and put it upside down and just shook everything, everyone.
It's like horny Ibsen.
Yeah, you can just feel
Ibsen's
it
super
all.
Horny.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. But he is, yeah. But it's all kind of like, come on, you know. And here you're in it, you know. Yes. So that to me was great to feel. I had no idea, but that's what happened.
And tell us about shooting the entrance, and what was it like for you to play that? I mean, there's so much anticipation for you to arrive, and when you arrive, I mean, the movie stops. You know, tell us about that moment.
It's kind of jarring when you read it. You kind of go, "Wow, how should I do this? Oh my God, you know, how do you do this? How do you pull this off? Such an entrance." And because you can't do it, the others have to play it, you know. So the others have to play you as the king or queen entering the room. And I didn't quite know. Funny enough, we never spoke about it before the actual day. Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, you walk in and then the scene.
We just rehearsed the scene, and Tessa would be over there, and then it would go through the whole room. But then I found out on the day that you tell it so lovely. What was the thing you were standing on? It was like a double dolly, and she was strapped in this thing. It didn't look very stable.
I looked like I was like a Macy's Day Parade, basically. I was like on a little tiny float, and I couldn't stand up all the way, so my dress was kind of like this, and then they had me in a seatbelt, which was also very funny.
It was actually so funny, because I remember the moment when, because initially she's standing, seatbelt for safety, and it looks kind of fine. And then Sean was like, "Oh, right. Usually when we do this, it's not with people on either side, so you're gonna have to go down." And you're like, "This?" And we're like, "More." And you're like, and so I love watching that shot, because what you're doing is amazing, but underneath you is like your crunched up body, 4 grips, and then in front of you, Sean Bobbitt, just like. So it's
people pushing
fun.
me along.
Exactly. No, it's great.
Yes, but this moment where I knew, oh, this is what we're gonna do. It's like a moment of the film is on hold.
Yeah.
And then something new, the pace changes, or something changes after that moment. It's just a moment of, as if the wind goes through. That to me, I was like, wow. I think that's probably the one and only time I'll ever get to do this. Yeah. You know, this is so amazing.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
And speaking of changes, and I'm glad you brought that term up, this film is surreal. Every like half an hour, the movie changes dramatically. The mood, the tone, the way visually it looks. Can you tell us about how you work that? And the actors also change as the movie progresses dramatically.
Yeah. Well, this is why I said it at a party, because I knew that I didn't want it to be a quiet film. I wanted it to start quietly, and I wanted it to give you, I want there to be a sense of anticipation, because in the play, you have a sense of anticipation to meet Hedda, but I wanted you to be with Hedda from the beginning to the end. Because for me, it really was like, this is her movie, this is about her. And so I was more interested in giving Loveborg that sort of delayed entrance, which he has in the play as well. But for me, it was like, Hedda's our main character, and then this new person comes in. So I knew that the beginning would be about getting into Hedda, but she's mercurial and unknowable, so it would have to be a slow introduction into Hedda and her world. And then once the party starts, once Eileen shows up, Hedda's incredibly activated, because I had to have the feeling of, oh gosh, she's kind of bored now. Like the anticipation of like, when's this person getting here? When's this person getting here? And then she finally does. And once she does, things have to change. So I liken it to like, you're on this train and you're watching the countryside, and all of a sudden you notice that you're going faster and faster, and then you start ringing alarms trying to tell someone like, oh my God, the train's going off, and then it goes off the rails. Yeah. That's what the party is.
I'm being told we have to wrap up, but I have maybe rapid fire. Why the maze? I love you include a maze into the story.
On the nose metaphor.
Yeah.
Dark twisting corners of our mind.
Yeah.
And also mazes are a huge part of like English country houses of a certain size. So it's just another ridiculous thing that they have at their house.
And then incredible score by Hilda. I cannot pronounce the last name.
Cliff daughter.
Okay. You said it. The breathing, the sort of whispering, and it's so sexual, and then you add percussion to it. Tell us about how did you guys arrive into that score?
That was the first thing I told Hilda when we talked. I said, I want to figure out how to use breath in the score, punctuation or percussion, and then we kind of talked about it for a bit, and it just became Hedda's sort of. I loved you said it's sort of like the breaths she can't take because she can barely breathe in that dress. And for me, it's also her like either her exasperation or excitement or just relief. And then the percussion was so much about being inside of her head. And then the other elements of the score, like the brass, the trumpet that we have playing, that was like the more emotional side of it. And then the final component was the love song.
And then in this version, is to include Tessa and to have the last word. Hedda doesn't commit suicide in this version, but you leave us with the most enigmatic smile. Tell us about arriving to that moment and the ambiguity of her half smile at the end.
Well, it really just started and ended with Nia's brilliant work on the page. That sometimes you have a piece, you have stage direction, and some actors are even inclined to cross it out because they want to feel free to do what they want to do in space. But this was the exact opposite. I read this piece of stage direction and it kind of got tattooed in my brain, similar to Nina reading that scene and thinking, I can't wait to perform it. I felt the same thing about this piece of stage direction, and also had the accompanying feeling, which was like, how will I perform it? Because it's so complicated and so beautiful. But I think it's something like Hedda caught between dark finality and dark possibility can do nothing but break out into a wild, wicked, and wanting smile. And I just thought it was just so divine. Just such a perfect piece of stage direction that had so much in it, and yes, as you say, so much ambiguity, but this sense of either possibility or finality. And just as an audience member, my favorite films are the films that leave me with a sense of, wow, what happens now? And also leave me with a question, not an answer. And I thought that she so brilliantly captured that. And funnily, because we shot everything at the lake the same day, we shot the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. Most things we shot in sequence, but so you can imagine it was quite a day because it's sort of her whole journey, at once. But it was just it remains one of my favorite pieces of text to perform.
beautiful.
Ever.
And Nia, why the switch to, in the play, she commits suicide. In this, you
Well,
set her free.
Yeah, I like. Interestingly, when I initially wrote it, I always knew Eileen would live. But the very first draft, I was like, and Hedda drowned. She's dead. Goodbye. The end. You know. And then I thought, that's not actually what I want to say. I just took for granted I should do that because that's what the play does. But actually, I want her to have a tomorrow to try again. Who knows what she'll do? But I think that's sort of the beauty of all these relationships is that getting to try is like the gift of life.
Yeah.
And even though she does horrible things, she's valid. And I wanted to make that clear to the audience that, you still get tomorrow.
Well, the three of you are brilliant. And
Thank
what an
you.
honor to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.